If you watch the news, you keep hearing the same message. Oh, inflation is down, we're back to normal. And frankly, the data backs it up. Inflation has dropped between 2 to 3%. But when you go to buy groceries, when you pay rent, when you're trying to buy a car, you start to see that things don't feel normal at all. Or am I missing something? Well, actually, you're not. There's a real gap between what the economic data measures and what your bank account is currently feeling right now. Today, we're closing that gap. We will explain why low inflation doesn't always mean low prices and what actually has to happen for things to start to feel affordable once again. First, let's get on the same page about how we got here. Between 2021 and 2023, we experienced a perfect storm. There was massive government surplus, supply chain chaos, an energy crisis, and a post-pandemic spending surge. The result of all of these, prices jumped 20 to 30% on many everyday goods and sometimes even more. Now, fast forward to late 2024 and 2025, inflation has cooled and the rate of price increase slowed way down. But here's the key. That 20 to 30% jump from a few years ago, it's still there and it's permanent unless something major happens. And that's where most people get it confused. So to clear this confusion, to help us understand why your wallet still hurts, we need to understand the difference between inflation and price level. So think of the economy like a car driving down a highway. Inflation is the speed that car is traveling, which is how fast prices are rising right now. The price level is the distance between where the car started off from and where we are currently. And this shows how much prices have risen in total, which is the equivalent of the distance. So back in 2022 and 2023, the car was speeding, we're going at around 100 kilometers an hour. That was the period of high inflation. Prices were rising incredibly fast. Now in 2025 and early 2026, central banks have hit the brakes. The car has slowed down to a much slower level and somewhere around let's say 20 kilometers an hour. And this is what the news is referring to when they say inflation has gone down. But here's the catch. Just because that car has slowed down, it doesn't mean it went in reverse. Don't forget, we're still a long way out from where we started from. Bear in mind that car started from somewhere, speeding and slowed. We're still a long way out from where we started from. The speed, which is inflation, has dropped. But the distance, which is the price tag on things like your groceries, your rent, your car insurance, is still a long way down the road. We only slowed the increase. We did not undo the damage. Now, this brings us to two words that sound similar but mean completely different things. One, deflation and disinflation. What we're experiencing right now is disinflation. That means prices are still rising, but they're just rising slower than before. Now, imagine a cup of coffee that was $2 maybe 2 years ago, and that coffee went to $3 last year. Maybe this year the coffee goes to $3.10 or maybe $3.20. That coffee didn't get cheaper. It got expensive, but at a much slower rate because it went from $2 to $3 and now it's at $3.10. So it got expensive, but at a much slower rate. What you probably want, what would actually make things to feel affordable again is deflation. That's when prices start dropping and that coffee that I mentioned earlier moves back to $2. Now, some specific categories do experience deflation. I mean, things like electronics, they get cheaper over time. Used cars, the value of used cars have dropped from when they were high during the pandemic period. But the broad deflation across all goods and services, that is incredibly rare. It doesn't happen often. And here's even more uncomfortable truth. Government and central banks, they will do anything possible to prevent widespread deflation. Why? Because they fear something called a deflationary spiral, which is where people stop spending money because they expect prices to fall even further. And this crashes demand and destroys the economy completely. So those old prices that you're thinking of, those old prices that you're reminiscing about, they're not coming back. We just need to move forward. Okay, you might be thinking, well, why can't prices come down? Even if it's just a little, but not all the way back. At least let prices come down just a little. Well, the answer is what economists call sticky prices. Well, stick with me, I'll explain. Think about it this way. Imagine you own a coffee shop. Well, we're still using a coffee as an example. So imagine you own a coffee shop, and to lower your prices significantly, you need to cut your costs first. And what are these your biggest costs? Wages, rent, debt payments on the equipment loans that you took, and supply contracts that you signed some time ago. Imagine that your staff or your barista got a raise sometime in 2022 or 2023 to deal with high inflation. Are you going to tell them that you're going to cut costs by 20%? Nobody accepts a pay cut without a fight. In fact, it breaks morale. Workers are going to quit and your productivity will collapse. In terms of your rent, your landlord has locked in a higher rent because you signed a lease. Your loan payments are fixed based off the previous prices that was agreed. Your suppliers have already raised prices into a locked contract and they're not going to lower those prices anytime soon. So even though inflation has cooled, your costs have not reversed. And if your costs don't go down, your prices can't go down either. And this is why once the price of an item goes up, it almost never comes down. The price sticks at that new level. Recall sticky prices. So wages are sticky, rent is sticky, debt is sticky, and because costs are sticky, prices are sticky. So what's the way out? After learning about sticky prices, after knowing that costs go up and prices go up too, and they don't always come down with slowing inflation, are we just going to remain poorer permanently forever? Well, not necessarily. The fix takes time, and it's not what most people expect. Since we cannot reverse the car, since we can't go down the road at every single point in time where inflation slows, we have to upgrade the engine. We have to do things differently. The only sustainable way out of an affordability crisis isn't for prices to fall, it is for your wages to catch up. This is called real wage growth. For a few years, inflation rose faster than paychecks. So inflation was climbing up here, paychecks were climbing down here. So there was a gap. That gap is why you feel broke, because your purchasing power fell behind inflation. Now imagine if inflation was jumping at 10% and your wages were increasing at 3%. There's a 7% gap. That gap is something we have to close. Now that inflation has slowed down between 2 to 3%, we need a sustainable period where wages rise faster than prices so that you can close that gap. And we're starting to see this in some sectors. In fact, workers who switched jobs between 2023 and 2024, they saw significant pay bumps. Some industries are now seeing 4 to 5% annual wage increase, while inflation sits between 2 to 3%. But the truth is, it's a very slow grind. In fact, it could take years for the average worker to fully recover the purchasing power they lost sometime between 2021 and 2023. This is what I call the price level trap. The crisis isn't over just because inflation is low. The crisis is over when your income closes the gap that was caused by the inflation of a few years ago. So the next time you see a headline celebrating low inflation, well, they're correct. The inflation rate going down, that's real. The economic data is correct. But price levels are still significantly higher from where they were in 2019, 2020, 2021. That's also a real frustration, and that frustration is very, very valid. We're currently living in a period of higher price floors, and the past where the prices were lower is not coming back. But your purchasing power, your wages, it can recover. So let me show you how. One, if you're employed, right now is actually a good time to negotiate a raise. Inflation has cooled, but you can point to the fact that prices have risen 20 to 30% over the last few years, and your salary needs to catch up. Two, job switching is still the fastest way to close your personal wage gap. Studies have shown that people who change jobs regularly between 2 to 3 years or maybe more can see somewhere from 10 to 20% wage increases, while those who stay with the same company in that same period usually see a 3 to 5% salary increase. Three, and this is important on the macro level, pay attention to government policies that boost productivity, things like infrastructure development, education, technology, because productivity growth is what allows wages to rise without triggering more inflation. So if the economy is more productive, companies get more competitive and they're able to pay bigger wages to attract and retain talent. Now, the only way out of this mess is to go right through it. Wages need to catch up. We need more money in our pockets. We need more money coming into our paychecks. And that process is right underway. Your job is to make sure that your wages are part of the story. Your job is to make sure that you can negotiate a bigger salary, maybe switch jobs to something that can pay you more so that you can beat this inflation wage gap. Well, if this breakdown has helped you really understand what's going on in the economy, if this breakdown has helped you understand how inflation and wage gaps really work, hit the like button and share this with someone who will find it beneficial. Let me know in the comments what has shocked you the most in terms of price increase between, say, 2020 and today. What has been the biggest jump, or what is something you wish that the prices will return back to their initial level? I read every comment and let you know my thoughts as well. So let me leave you one more thing. The old normal is gone, but we can build a new one where your income actually matches the world that we're living in. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.